Hello, everybody. Today we are talking about the July Art Dare with featured entries, and we are also announcing the September Art Dare. Welcome to Art Prof. This is our global art party. The July Art Dare was to create an artwork in any media that measured no bigger than 2 inches by 2 inches by 2 inches. The first artist we're going to talk about is Havrana, who says this actually fell inside her comfort zone. And so we have here 7 magnets made from cardboard covered in slip with acrylics and varnish. We also have a foam clay sculpture, which is down here, the anatomical heart, and an air dry clay sculpture, a duck with ducklings, keychain, and necklace charm. And that Havrana had to start over a few times and had to rework the theme. Wasn't as easy as I thought it would be, which only reinforces to me why these art dares are such a beneficial and fun exercise. What do you think?
I think it's awesome. And I love the fact that it was both in your comfort zone and also a challenge at the same time. Like it seems to me that the challenge primarily came from the subject matter, not necessarily the making of the art, which I think is very common. But I love what you were able to do. I think each of these tell their own fun, unique story. I love the one with the polar bears, for example. It's just like the mama bear and baby bear type of thing. So yeah, great stuff. I could keep going, but I feel like you should. I should move on.
I just love Havrana that they're magnets, because usually when you hear tiny art, people will go to Blick and they'll get those tiny little canvases, which always look really cute to me, but I've never actually bought them. Because another thing that I'm seeing is the way that the magnets connect with each other. For example, these two over here, you can see it's one moon, which is split across 2 magnets. And then so cool that you turn this into a keychain and that you were using the various 3-dimensional materials. It's a really beautiful connection between all of the various pieces. And isn't this great how the stars in the sky segue into the snowflakes? It's such a beautiful scene for that reason. And I don't even know if that was intentional, Havrana, but either way, it's a really lovely collection, because that's very different than just doing one piece.
Yeah, I actually really like the fact that the moon is in probably almost every image, with the exception of like the polar bear one, at least of those 6. And it's just giving different perspectives of probably the same night. And I think that it feels very cinematic in that way.
Welcome, everybody. Tell me in the comments, how has your morning been so far? I rolled out of bed. How about you, Jordan?
I've been up for a couple hours, been working, had some breakfast, and yeah, jumped on the live stream.
So you were actually productive. I was not at all. And by the way, everybody, thank you so much for all of the kind, supportive comments here from Courtenay and also Anna. I so appreciate that. I mean, one of the most lovely things that people have been saying to me is that you guys will be here when I come back. Because Jordan, I think with social media, you're like, oh, if I disappear for a month, I'm going to lose my following. And it just feels so good to have people who have your back.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's take a look at Shaheen, who says they were exploring looking in and out, being an observer, never being fully part of something, to be a little bit of an outsider, how it feels looking in or out at people, even those who you love, because you're a little out of sync, sometimes or mostly a sign of neurodivergence. Well, let's take a look at these 5 canvases. What do you think, Jordan?
I love the compositions on each of these. I think the ones on the right in particular are my favorite, especially the one on the top. It just, the color difference with looking outside the window, I love how it feels gridded, but it also feels like the composition is still not too even in as it divides. So yeah, I really like how these are being interpreted.
And what an important theme, Shaheen, neurodivergence, which I think is something that people, well, hopefully are talking about more, at least compared to the 90s when I was a teenager. We didn't really talk about stuff like that, but it is something that I think people are talking about more. And I just love the representation of this because this is one of my favorite pieces. This feeling of being in this dark place and then looking out at this beautiful, sunny, crisp sky, which I think is a really great contrast of feeling like you're in the darkness, but looking out into this sunshine that you somehow cannot enter, I think is very powerful. And then each of the windowscapes being so different from each other. Where do you imagine this place is, Jordan? Because this doesn't really seem as clear cut as this one where we can say, okay, there's a window.
You know, I have a friend, a couple friends who live in Norway, and sometimes I see their like backyard. It's always these green mountainscape. I'm sorry, my cat just. I'm sorry, she just jumped in.
That's okay. We get to see.
This is Hina.
Wait, what's her name again?
This is Hina. Yeah, she was in the garage. She loves the garage for some reason, and she just came out. There's dust in her ear. Yeah, so she likes jumping on my desk. What was I saying?
From Norway.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It feels like Norway or something because of all of the like the green. It just feels like a place that's filled with nature. Very few people who live there. And oh my gosh, she's walking over my desk. So yeah.
And then this one, I think, has a really wonderful diagonal composition with the staircase being so architectural, and then you have the puffiness of the clouds. It's a really wonderful collection, Shaheen. Courtenay says, love the windowscapes, and also that you paid the cat tax.
Oh, sweet.
Anna says, I'm neurodivergent and differently abled, and the experience is very much like that. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, Anna. Okay, next artist is Courtenay, who was just here, and talks about packaging self-sticking tape does not hold well, and 2 inches is smaller than I thought. I believe you are not the only person who discovered that, Courtenay. Okay, so this project, Courtenay explains, involved learning the details of making envelopes, packages, matches, and matchbox by viewing how the original items were constructed. The materials are junk mail, index cards, brown paper bags, gel pen, colored pencils, and says that this project also inspired redesigning my calling card as a matchbox with my email on the back of the matchsticks. Actually, that makes me think of Better Call Saul because he had little matchbooks that said to call him.
Oh, that's right. He did. Oh my goodness. I remember that.
Yeah. I just love that part of it. But what do you think, Jordan?
I think these are fun. I like the fact that, first of all, I've never seen cards that are this small, or little matchbox cards that are this small. I think it's so fun. I love the creativity of the different materials that are being used and shifting colors and using just materials that are not particularly common. Like I don't think of these materials when I think of little cards like this. I'm sorry. I need to put her out.
That's okay. We get to see Kima again. Well, I was going to say one of the coolest things, Courtenay, about this work is just so many different formats, and they're a beautiful collection. The way you put them together, and I have to imagine at this scale, this kind of construction is really impossible for a lot of people. How about all the writing, Jordan? Everything is digital now. And to see handwritten letters is really lovely. I mean, for me, it's like nostalgic. That's all we did. We didn't have text messages when I was a kid.
Yeah, it feels like going through some sort of photo album, and you go through like all the old cards or different artifacts from grandpa and grandma or great grandma or something, and it's something that I think really is. It's definitely it feels more heartfelt, right? Like I would rather get a handwritten letter or card than something just like a digital email, even if it's saying the same thing, just because there is the different type of effort that's felt.
Look at the matchstick with the squirrels on top. I love that you cut out the matchsticks. This is just so like I love this that you made your own matches. It's just so wonderful. Like Missa says, it's absolutely charming. And Generic says, I love calligraphy, intricate poems, and fountain pens. And 10K says, these are amazing. Okay, well, the next artist is Rose, who says, when I saw the Art Dare, I knew I wanted to explore feelings of solitude and loneliness, something I would usually achieve by making use of space around the subject. And so the limited palette that Rose used, phthalo green and quinacridone magenta. And so mixing these two created a composition with a tiny boat floating ominously beneath a darkened sky. Really beautiful composition, Rose.
Yeah, I think this is gorgeous. I think that the feeling of isolation kind of coincides with feeling small. Like usually people are isolated, like I'm all by myself. I'm, it's such a big world and it's just little me. So I think that it's meta in a sense, but in a good in a good way, in the right way. And yeah, the composition I think really serves that feeling of making you feel alone in the world.
I also think there's really something to be said about the scale of the artwork and how it engages how we interact with the piece. Because sometimes you go to a museum, it's like a 10-foot tall canvas and it's bigger than you. And yeah, that's impressive and everything. But when you get something that small, I think the interaction is so much more intimate. I mean, it really feels like you're having this lovely, quiet moment with this artwork. And Rose, you absolutely captured this. Now, a lot of people might think, oh, this piece is all about the boat, because that's clearly the quote figure in the composition. But I feel like the sky is actually the main event here. Is that for you, or is this just me?
Yeah, it reminds me. You probably know this because you're a fan of Calvin and Hobbes, but there is one particular comic where Calvin and Hobbes are like looking up at the sky and they're basically like, "Wow, it's so space is so infinite," and they feel so small. It's kind of that same feeling. And if you look at the composition again, the sky takes up a majority of the image, and so I think it actually increases that feeling even more because it makes us feel like like we're out on the beach trying to take a look at the boat through it like a binoculars or something like that. So yeah, it definitely is working well.
Courtenay says that water and boat are amazing. And this is a great point from Lisa, who says the white border works well with the blue. Exactly. Like if this painting went to the edge, it would be a different piece. I think this almost reads like a vignette in a way, that it's this moment in time that's being captured. Missa says, I like the contrast of something so vast on a small format. Charismatic says the scale of the boat and the ocean is very good at making that isolated feeling. Yeah, for me, it's sort of somber in a way and lonely, but also very beautiful at the same time. And thank you so much, Alina, for the super chat. So much appreciate your support. And thank you, everybody. There's been such lovely messages from everybody. I have not had a chance to reply to all of them. I will slowly work on that as I'm starting to feel better. But it means so much to me that people are really giving me that support. Feeling like you guys have my back is really amazing. Missa also says, I also like that it feels like it's representing this giant feel we sometimes carry, but only in our minds. And Catherine says, the frequency of felt deep waters wants to see Meyer. Okay, the next artist is Manette, who did a series of paintings of a deer skull that she found and cleaned. Manette explains, I like the idea of having snapshots of it so the viewer doesn't know what they're looking at. They really just look like little abstract paintings. And this was done in watercolor. First four used a dip pen for the hatching. Last two used a paint brush. Okay, well, there's a whole bunch of these pieces here. I'm just going to go through all of them quickly at first so people can see the scope of how many pieces Manette did. But yeah, what's your take?
It reminds me of when I think we did this in your class actually, when we went to the nature lab and we would like sketch all the really small, like microscopic things and doing like almost abstract art with it. It reminds me of that. And I've actually always appreciated that because nature has some of those beautiful things, even when we don't see it with the naked eye. So seeing you take these four aspects of just a skull and seeing what you're able to create, I think is absolutely wonderful. I think you're getting great textures. It's mysterious as well, and I think it's kind of fun to kind of, if you hadn't told us what you drew, I think it'd be fun for the viewer to kind of like pick it out and see if they can piece it together.
This is one of my favorites, Manette, because I know what that squiggly line is. Is that a thing that you see across skulls and everything? But here it becomes this really playful, whimsical line. And it's amazing when you follow the range of how much the line changes. Here it's very dark and really wide. It gets very light here. And then here the line actually stops temporarily, and then the density of the lines. I mean, I can't believe this is all watercolor. I would have assumed you just bought yellow ink or something like that. But then also, something we've been talking about a lot in art club is realism and abstraction. And a lot of people have been talking to me about, well, I don't really want realism, but I also don't want something that's 100% abstract. And Manette, you really have done a great job with both of those things, because the beginning of the piece was the realism of the deer skull, which you then transformed into these abstract landscapes. So I think this is a really fantastic exercise for exploring abstraction from something that does exist in the real world. Missa says, love the focus on tiny, intricate details that you wouldn't see if looking at the bone on its own. Courtenay loves that it's watercolor. And Lisa says, Manette's ink choice has great tones. And Charismatics says, the first one is my favorite. The dots that make this kind of sickly eye look. And especially, I know a lot of you guys have been hanging out in the Discord, sharing your progress throughout the month, and Courtney's noting how cool it is to watch people progress throughout the month on their art dares. And that's really the fun of it, is seeing the development. I think we all enjoy seeing the finished artwork, but Jordan, there's really something about following that progress.
Yeah, I everyone knows I love watching behind the scenes stuff
Me
and
too.
seeing something was made. I think there are probably some documentaries of how a movie was made that I've watched more than the movie itself. So I think it's really, really cool to kind of get an inside look at this. And that's why the Art Club Discord section is so cool, because you have the opportunity to see everyone's work, not just one or two people or even the staff's work. It's multiple people across a whole range of different mediums and styles and inspirations. So it's just excellent.
All right, let's take a look at 10K Crows, who I believe is here live in the chat, who says everyone is buying Labubu's lately. Wanted to save money, so I decided to paint one instead. And so the painting process is, as 10K says, I started with a simple reference of the toy, but his personality and vibe emerged naturally. And the most challenging part was to create a realistic fur texture. Oh, and you're thinking about a tiny painting series where you paint more Labubu's, each with their own unique personalities and aesthetics. Oh, and 10K is here live with us in the chat. Have you heard about Labubu's? Because I just heard a little bit of, but apparently they're like exploding.
I have never heard of them, but based on the proportions, it kind of reminds me of like a Nendoroid or like a Funko Pop or Garbage Pail Kids, like that. Those kind of like collectible toy things. So yeah,
They make me think about Furbies, but
yeah,
transform with different proportions, I guess.
yes, Furbies. I used to get those in the Happy Meals.
And this is an earlier stage. And I just noticed the monster drink on the right-hand side, which one of my family members really likes these drinks. And I love that that's giving him some personality. And then here is the finished piece. Missa says, Furbies that were fed after midnight. Yeah, they do have a somewhat devious look to them, mischievous. They look like they would cause some trouble somewhere, which is.
Have you ever seen those Sour Patch Kids commercials? Where it's
What?
like first they're sour, then they're sweet. Like, you ever see those?
No.
So Sour Patch Kids, it's the candy, and basically what they're doing is like the first scene. There's a bunch of them doing something really evil. They're like tying up someone's shoes. They're like burning things in the house, and then like they're destroying your car. They're just doing all this mayhem, and then that's when it says first they're sour, and then suddenly they basically repent and they just feel bad, and they like give them a hug and like then they're sweet. That's kind of what this reminds me of a little bit. Like they're in the sour phase.
And 10K, I really like your color choices because you kept the super bright saturated colors in the Labubu, but then the sky and the cityscape in the background, it's like these cool, darker values with these beautiful yellow windows that seem like they're glowing. Really beautiful work. Zola Vieira says, love him. And Courtenay says, the tiny drink, giggle. And Zola Vera says, is he in Florida? I see palm trees. Or LA, right?
Or LA. Yes, it could also be LA.
Missa says, looks like Labubu is out for a menacing night on the town. This is why you go home before 2 a.m. And 10K confirms, yes, he lives in Miami. Okay. Next artist is Matt Higgins, who explains, recently my wife and I had a baby. Congratulations. And says that the first 3 weeks were brutal. I felt like I had to constantly be awake. Oh God, you cannot pay me to go back to that first month. It is so hard. So kudos to you, Matt, for just getting out of bed during that time period. And says every time one of us would move it, felt like the baby, despite being asleep, was watching us to see if she could wake up. Also, my first time doing a painting in only watercolor.
I love that the mouth is replaced with an eye. Like there's something very surreal about it. And then after hearing the description, like I understand now. Like because the baby's crying. That's what they're doing. It's like, are you watching me with your mouth? Like I get it. It is very funny. I am sorry at your pain, though. I'm not a parent, but I imagine that one day I will experience the same trials.
However brutal you think having kids might be, it's 1,000 times worse than anything you could possibly imagine. And Matt, this really speaks to me because the thing about having your first kid, you really feel like you're in this strange, surreal world. You feel like you're in a different world than the rest of what other people are doing. And it's just this like nonstop dream where you're incredibly sleep deprived and you can't think straight about anything. And this totally makes sense with me. It's just how strange life is after you have a kid. And it's also startling because the thing about having kids is, don't get me wrong, I love my kids and they're so cute when they're babies, but it is so hard and it is brutal. And these emotions that we have, it's like we can't really explain them. They just keep happening. Also, this is Matt's first watercolor painting. What do you think of that?
That's honestly incredible. My first watercolor painting did not look anything like this or anything that was like readable, honestly. So the fact that you were dealing with this type of situation where you're probably not getting as much sleep as you would like, and you're able to do this well on your first try is really, really encouraging. That's awesome.
And also the fact that the baby is blue. I also think that color choice makes a big difference and contributes to that dreamy atmosphere. Okay, so this is William, who made a miniature knife from 100% discarded materials, with the idea that no matter what the results of my art dare, I still would have another art tool for future use. And so it has a black lacquered guitar body shaped oak scales to provide highly ergonomic grip for easy manipulation. They have scales that are retained with lead plugs that have copper rivet heads. And the blade is stainless steel, has a fuller, a top false edge, sharpened swedge, and fully sharpened bottom edge. Now, this I did not expect to see for the Art Dare.
Yeah, this is fascinating because it's the first one that's not simply an art piece. It is a useful tool that can be used for later. It's very creative. It feels kind of like Tom Hanks in Castaway, like he's just crafting stuff and putting things together, which I think is so awesome. I really love seeing how this came together.
I can't believe that you made it at such a tiny scale, William, because all of the materials that you're talking about, it's a lot. I mean, to make a stainless steel blade, the lacquer, the copper, that is so many things. And this is not easy to make at the scale. But there's so many parts to this because it's industrial design, designing this blade and then the construction of it. I mean, I couldn't make something like this if I tried. And I just think it's such a wonderful demonstration of your understanding of different materials, how to assemble them together. And it's really funny because it's like, I guess this would be good for stabbing things, or I don't know, but it's like there's a limit when you have a knife that tiny, what it's capable of doing.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember we would do sword fights with thumbtacks, and it's like there's only so much you can really do, and it's probably even more dangerous because you can't see the thing. It's just kind of what it reminds me of.
Generic says, awesome tool, but what's it used for? Well, William, maybe later if you watch this replay, we'd love for you to comment and tell us all the various uses you would have for this, because I sometimes carry a razor blade with me in my wallet because you never know when you want to cut something. I mean, I stopped doing it because of airports and I knew I would forget, but there's something really nice about having something that is so portable and easy to use. Okay, the next artist is Missa, who is here live in the chat making everybody laugh. And so Missa explains, I really had fun with it and it got me to just post something. And that's a big difference, Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, I think this came out great. I mean, and trying something out, going in without that fear of approval or trying to have a specific goal, I think that's very awesome to have because we can often get overwhelmed by that. And so as far as this piece, like I personally see it as like a mini, it almost looks like a tapestry piece in a way. Like it looks like something, if it was blown up to a giant size, I could see like the gold ornamentation and the cat sitting there and it having some sort of very significant role in like the culture or the country or something like that. And I also like the little rat that's on the side too. I think that's awesome.
So actually, you know what the little rat is called? And I know this because I spoke to a curator of manuscripts at the Getty Museum, it's actually called marginalia. All those like little silly doodles that they have. I mean, that really is so funny, because the thing about marginalia is you oftentimes don't notice it right away. And it's so funny because I first see the cat and then I go, oh, wait a second, there's a mouse who's like sneaking away and the cat doesn't see him. It's just a really fun narrative that's being established.
So wait, so just so I'm clear, marginalia is like anything that's a super small detail. It could be any object.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so this is basically done in the tradition of illuminated manuscripts where you have one letter that's gigantic and
Mhm.
it has all kinds of colors and decoration. Usually it's got gold leaf. And actually, Missa, I'm wondering what you used for the gold because it has a beautiful sparkle. But yeah, Missa says there are tons of knights fighting snails in marginalia. Charismatic says, I agree, feels almost ancient. And Ginny says, wow, this is so simple but so cool. Reminds me of a medieval book. Well, I took a class on illuminated manuscripts when I was an undergraduate student, so this really appeals to my sensibility. Okay, so Missa confirms mice watercolor for gold. Okay, fantastic. Love seeing, especially Missa, the richness of that blue. I think that really brings out the gold beautifully. Okay, Lisa is here live with us in the chat, who says, apparently I love making 2-inch art because I went a little crazy. I enjoyed using a viewfinder to select compositions. Here's one piece, but look at what Lisa did. And also, really quickly, before we look at the pieces more, this is not where Lisa stopped. She also made all of these little pieces here. And it just was so fun, Lisa, in art club, watching your progress. Okay, well, what do we think? Amazing.
This is really cool. First of all, I love the way you're treating the sculptures when you're taking the photos, like the subtle red lighting on the right side. It feels something. It feels like something that is like professional photography for these little objects, and then not to. I didn't even realize you made like all of these. There's like what 12 of them there. So yeah, I think this is really really cool and very ambitious.
The photograph to me is artwork. Look at the lighting. I mean, what's cool about this is I know that it's 2 inches, but it looks gigantic. There's an explosive quality to it. And then placing these pieces, are these plastic, Lisa? I'm curious where they're from. So basically, the lighting, the context of the 2D artwork. I mean, look at these amazing colors. And it's not just from the light, it's also from the clay.
You know what this looks like to me? It looks like the gate in Stranger Things when Eleven's trying to close
Yeah,
it.
that strange glow to it. And Lisa says now it looks like a pizza collision, which I know you've been hanging out and drawing at pizza salons, but these are just so wonderful and diverse. And this was, I believe, a contraption that your husband made for you. I think it's an inkwell. Anyway, tell us about it. And so then Lisa did these 2D pieces, and these are just so much fun because they look great as a group, but each one has its own distinctive look.
Yeah, they all kind of convey something different. Some of them feel like really close up photographs. Others kind of feel like um, bird's eye views of landscapes and like cornfields and like stuff you'd see in South America with all the like the crops and everything like that. Like they made giant spiders or something. So yeah, this is chock full of creativity in this.
Lisa says the plastic pieces are 3D prints by my husband. Courtenay says beautiful photos. Well, that's certainly a collection of pieces. I feel like you did the Art Dare leap 1,000 times or something. Okay, next artist is Bosch, who says, I thought a central composition of a flower was too obvious. So he painted a trompe l'oeil of a leaf. And this is a hardened walnut oil cup to fill up new. A texture glowed in sunlight. and became the subject. This is another piece that I think is sort of like what you were talking about, a Manette's piece, in terms of having something in real life and then creating a more abstract version.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. I actually really love the way that you've done the table or the background in this. I like the texture that you're seeing there and the subtle rim of the cup, especially on the bottom left side, like how that shadow's kind of giving information about the light side of the cup. I think is done really, really well.
And then we also have this lovely flower study from Bosch as well. And here is this so fun to see, okay, the walnut oil cup is on the left, the real object, and then the paintings right next to it. I just think that's such a brilliant juxtaposition. There's an art school word, so I can sound smart. Now, these are roses from the Rose Garden at Queen's Park in New Westminster. Such a beautiful collection, seeing them all together like this.
Yeah, they all feel very delicate. The colors match with the vibe of each flower. I think it's working very, very well.
And I love how the color scheme changes, because you can see here all the flowers have a yellow tint. But then when we go through to the right-hand side, you can start to see the pinks and the magentas emerge. And so even though there is a lot of visual variety in terms of the colors, it still works as a complete piece. And I think that's what we're seeing here, is that people are doing many pieces that are small. And so you start to see them as a collection, because sure, it's nice to have a single piece and to appreciate it on its own. But when you get to see all the pieces, you start to say, okay, how does that flower look like this one? What are some of the differences? And I love how loose these are, Uma, that some of them, the flowers almost seem to dissolve, like this one in the lower left-hand corner. But I also like how this one feels really, really solid. It's so well done. Tracy says, beautiful roses, love the color choices. And Courtenay says, the flowers are lovely. Okay, next artist is Moss Hellerman, who says that he jumped into subject matter and a medium I love, oil landscapes. Now, this is a good point, that the small scale took away some control over the brushes, and I enjoyed the marks that I produced. Also made me think about composition more, because I didn't have the room to add unnecessary elements. It's very valuable real estate when you paint this small.
You know, it reminds me of the lesson about doing thumbnails, like just that realization about how there's certain details that are very difficult to get on such a small scale. That's the purpose of a thumbnail. So how do you get good art? You have to rely on the composition. And so I think this is like the perfect training ground for something like that. I actually kind of want to try thinking of it in that respect too, because there's so much that you can do with the light, the silhouettes, the color, different things like that that really make these excel.
And I watched you develop several of these in art club, Moss, and I just think your brushwork improves so much, because here the brushwork is pretty subtle. You've got low contrast. This one over here is like super direct brushwork. It's very confident, and yet it also has a beautiful sense of shape. So I know that I really enjoyed the cohesion of the colors, the brushwork, but that's what makes this yellow in the upper right-hand corner extra special. Like, it really pops amongst everything else. These are a series of origami boxes that Butter did, and this is about political situations. And you would invite people to navigate the boxes while blindfolded, because that's how these political situations happen. And these all have specific titles like false comfort, the soft cage, gradual constraint, slow tightening. Really incredible to see this collection.
Wow. Yeah, this is really interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a concept quite like this. And I love how different they all feel. Like, especially that one in the middle, it just feels like you just kind of scrunched it up. And then you have like the fuzzy like cotton coming out, then the stark red. They all convey very different emotions, and despite the fact they all have very similar exteriors and similar limitations.
And it's so amazing, Butter, that you thought about people interacting with these, with the tactility, people touching them, and that people are not supposed to see it because they're supposed to be blindfolded. And that's so powerful. This idea that it's visual art that doesn't involve looking upon the viewer. And I feel like that's the last thing people think about when it comes to visual art. And this one, I think, is really aggressive. I mean, it looks like things that are jutting out. They could stab you. I feel like the red is an insinuation of blood being in that context. Missa says, tremendously cool. Courtenay says, so good. Enjoyed watching this on Discord. And Tracy says, I had not considered painting so small would be a thing for me. Now I'm inspired to give it a go. Okay, we have more entries, and I guess I've been spacing out a little bit, so this stream might be a little bit longer than usual. Anyway, Marie did colored pencil. First plan was to try to do a whole figure to fit in the square, but then decided to do a picture of her husband and found it freeing to use such a small scale as the focus could not be so much on likeness. So we've got cats gardening out and about.
I love these. I love that they're little snapshots of life. I think the silhouettes work really well. The colors are great, and I also like the kind of wispiness of the way they're drawn. Like the lines are rather soft, and it kind of makes it almost dreamlike to me.
I feel like it's slice of life. There's something really endearing about seeing all of these moments that your husband's going through throughout the day. And it goes to show that these concepts that we have behind our artworks, they don't have to be deep. They don't have to be big or be a commentary about society today. They can be these wonderful, just mundane moments. And also, Marie, oh my God, the range of compositions, the fact that this one at the bottom has no face. This one, we can't see it because he's bending over. And then you do give us this one where he is making eye contact with us. And oh man, foreshortening. I was just talking today in art club about how difficult it is to do foreshortening because it does look so weird. But this one really does a great job of that. Okay, the next artist is Lisa, who says, I did a tiny grid. Oh, I did a grid of tiny watercolors and a tiny sculpture, which is what we're seeing here. My son provided a micro Star Wars figure to put on the bridge. Background of the sculpture is digital. Well, my kids have not participated in my work just yet, but how about this?
I think it's so fun that there's not only different media, but different artists collaborating.
I know.
And your son was like, yo, put the stormtrooper in here. like, come on. Isn't it obvious? It needs a stormtrooper. So I think it's super fun. And just the energy of it, it actually reminds me of Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka and the chocolate room in particular, where they had like the whole room of just everything was candy. It feels like a stormtrooper just kind of found his place there, and it's very fun and whimsical in the background, but there's like a totalitarian nature with the stormtrooper there. And it's just a very fun, to use your word again, juxtaposition. So yeah.
Oh, are you trying to one up me, Jordan?
No, I'm trying to get in sync. I'm trying to get on your level, Clara.
Missa says, I'm almost going to be disappointed by art without stormtroopers now. And what a contrast. Here, these little delicate watercolor pieces. We do have a stormtrooper down here at the bottom. He looks so kind and soft with those colors. But I just think it's really fun that the collection here is all over the place. Like we were saying before, Marie did one that was very cohesive with her husband, but it almost feels like these random watercolor doodles. And there's really something to be said about a process like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cool thing is like even though they are potentially very random, they still come from the mind of the same person,
We
and
do.
in that sense, there is a consistency there. And also, I have a theory that stormtrooper is actually Luke underneath. Um, and I think that's him in Episode 4, where he's walking around with Han Solo disguised as a stormtrooper. That's why he's so friendly looking.
Is anyone here a Star Wars fan? I waited in line outside that was around the block at the cinema to watch Return of the Jedi. That was my childhood, everybody. Okay, the last artist we're going to take a look at is Liz Welsh. And Liz has a bunch of pieces here. So many materials: India ink, hibiscus dyed leather, forged vines, vintage embroidery thread. And Liz says worked with materials that already carry meaning, found, forged, and full of history. There's even corpse flowers painted with leather dyed with hibiscus from my garden, detailed with India inks. What an amazing range. And there's also the oil painting of the muskrat skull. From a moment I witnessed in nature and felt untouched. Isn't this just the most amazing range of supplies?
Yeah, it feels like you went foraging just for this project. It's awesome. Like I love the fact that you incorporated the vines and all
I
these
know.
materials and like the certain leather. I'm like, where would you even get this stuff? It's so I love that you're able to put them all together. And most people I think would be tempted to make a massive sculpture or something out of it, but you were able to still condense it into this 2x2 frame. And so I think it's really awesome that you could do
And
that.
also, Liz, the yarn that you've added here. Sometimes people add things and it's just there to hold something in place. And sometimes it doesn't look very good. But I love that you picked that neutral green color. I feel like that really matches the brown of the branches. And also that some of the yarn goes over the painting. So that way the yarn really is interacting with what's happening here. And then the corpse flower really feels like this object that's like emerging out of that frame. I think it's just the most beautiful format that you did. We have some prizes to give out. The honorable mention goes to Rose. Congratulations. And the prize winner is Courtenay, who is here live with us in the chat. Congratulations, everybody. Okay, we're going to announce the September Art Dare, which is Smash and Crush. So if you're mad about something, this is the Art Dare for you. I feel like this is my Art Dare. So we're going to invite you to choose 3 3D objects to smash and crush, however much or as little as you want. And then you're going to create a 2D or 3D artwork with those pieces. So here are a bunch of artists. This is one Yi Suk Young, who I actually recently saw at the Metropolitan. This is the installation. These are huge pieces, and they're all created from these smashed up pieces of porcelain.
That's crazy. It's so cool. Wow. Wow, that's so cool. I've never seen anything like this. I'm just kind of mesmerized actually.
Well, because you think about porcelain as this like beautiful object, and these are so weird to me. Like they have this bubbly form. They almost look like something organic, and yet it's porcelain, which we know is a very hard material. But I love how you look at this and you can't even tell really that it's teapots until you really look up close to it. And then the fact that these are so like I can't even conceive making a piece that's that tall. I mean, that piece was probably like, I don't know, it had to have been at least 20 feet tall. It was crazy. And so I just admire so much the craftsmanship, the vision here. And I think there's something to be said about artwork that feels like it's a resurrection, like a phoenix coming out of the flames. Can you guess what this was, Jordan?
Some sort of animal, maybe.
Well, the material. What do you think the material?
Oh, the material. I'm sorry. Honestly, it looks like paper. But no, I don't know.
Can anybody guess? Because, well, I probably shouldn't tell you so soon. So let me just look at some of the other pieces. But these are also gigantic, and I don't know how these were fabricated. But I think it's really interesting to see how this one almost feels like a fox that's about to jump. These are quite abstract, but to me, they really do look like figures. Oh, Anna, you already knew. It's crushed cars. Isn't that nuts?
Wow, that's insane.
Metal, for sure. Lisa's wishing she had waited because she just smushed up some old plastiline pieces. And Anna is asking, do we have to smash now, or can we use things that have already been smashed? Smash now, in the moment. This is an artist, Marta Klonowska. I don't know if I said that right, but this is shattered glass. And these are sculptures she makes.
Wow. I would be so terrified to work in that, but she made it look very beautiful.
I know. I mean, I'm sure there are safe ways to do this, but what I'm amazed is that her pieces look so orderly, the way that she's arranged things. But then if you look at the individual pieces, you see how each one is unique and how fragmented it is. But this is like so lyrical and organic. It's really incredible.
This reminds me of the guy who does portraits by breaking glass. Have you seen that?
No, but we should look him up.
I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. It's really, really cool.
This is Cornelia Parker, and oh my gosh, her work is just extraordinary. It's basically pieces, I think some of them are salvaged from, I don't know if it's her home, but from architecture. These are pieces of charcoal, and I've seen these in person. They have very thin wires that you can see, you can't see them very well. So it makes it look like the charcoal is just like suspended in midair, and they have this incredible, I don't know, destructive look to them. I mean, aren't these shadows amazing?
Yeah, this is really something. This is really something. I like how filled the photo feels, like the composition.
Missa says, I feel like band-aids are going to be a large part of this art dare. And Charismatic says, it reminds me of this piece I saw in an art museum that was made out of oil cans. I swear it looked like cardboard. I'm talking about the old Cars one. Fantastic. Okay, so we would love for you guys. Oh, we forgot about this. Okay, if you want to smash 5 things, that's the Art Dare Leap. Use them however you want. And remember, you can submit here in the Discord, in the Art Dares channel. Just see the pinned message for instructions and hang out here throughout the month. Tell us in the comments if you enjoy seeing the progress here, because I certainly do. And we can get ideas from each other, watch the progress. So I highly recommend you guys come here. We love sharing your work via Instagram stories. Tag us and we will share. Now, if you don't have Discord, you want to go to artprof.org. That is our website. Go to Art Dares under Learn and Create in the main menu, and just scroll down. We do have a Google form, and that's where you guys can submit. And oh, actually, sorry, I lied. We're not doing a discussion today because I have to go get ready for surgery. Sorry, you guys. Apologies, I should get rid of that slide. So, okay, let's confirm that one more time. There is no live chat today, everybody, because I think, as you have heard, I am doing dental surgery later today. I'm going to be out of commission for at least a week, possibly longer. But you guys have been so kind and supportive of understanding and being patient with me. I so appreciate that. And plus, Jordan, I have you guys on staff to have my back. And oh my God, I'm so grateful.
Yes, we got your back, Clara. Go get better.
Yes. So next time you guys see me, I'm going to look a little different. Mostly, you're going to lose all all of these teeth at the top. I'm going to have dentures, basically. And I might speak with a lisp for a little while. It does take time for things to settle in. And I'm obviously a little bit distressed about that idea of I'm going to look different. I'm going to speak different. I mean, hopefully it settles in. I have no idea. It's like the unknown. But anyway, there's going to be some changes, which I am sort of deeply uncomfortable with. But people have been so nice telling me that I'm still the same person, still have the same wacky brain. And Jane says, speedy recovery. Just relax and don't lift a finger. And 10K says, good luck, Prof Lieu. I hope you have a lot of Eric Bana movies ready. Well, you know something? I think Jordan, since a lot of people here may not know who he is. There he is. Look at him. Oh my God. Okay, you have to appreciate the anatomy, Jordan. Come on, look at those deltoids.
He's a very fit man. I just the oogling is that level is diminished significantly for me. Yeah.
Look at him. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We will see you next time. Bye.